Royce, want to go grab some lunch?
What do you want to talk about? Can we just talk now? I got a lot to do. It's like
I guess.
This is Jean-Paul Holcomb. I'm Royce Cousins. We're on Chapter 10 of Man in the Mirror. And today we're going to talk about why I don't have any friends.
Well, I got a list for you. No.
This is going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, just kidding. So, Man in the Mirror, Chapter 10, Friends, Risks, and Rewards. That's what we're actually talking about.
A risky proposition. No?
No? I don't catch the reference. I got to tell you, my brain just went completely blank, and I feel like we have to start over.
That's fine with me.
Yeah, like right now I gotta what are we talking about? Friendships, the risks of friendship. What do you want to start talking about?
I think we can start talking about as guys, we can often be the ones that are like going through something tough and going, no one's reaching out. No one's, but we're so focused on goals and this and that, and we don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want to have these close friendships. Intimacy is not a man thing, is it? Or should it be? I don't know, something like that.
That's perfect. That's exactly what I need to get my brain going the right way. So, take two. Hey, Royce, want to go get some lunch?
What do you want to talk about? What is it? Yeah, can we just talk now? Like, is it 5 minutes? I got things to do, dude.
I guess we.
This is Jean-Paul Holcomb. I'm Royce Cousins, and today we're in Chapter 10 of Man in the Mirror, and we're going to be discussing why I have no friends.
Friends, that's risky business. As you the title is called Risks and Rewards. Friends, Risks and Rewards. So yeah, what's the issue here?
I think the issue is basically guys don't tend to be as relational as women, and we're very goal oriented. And one of the interesting things that he just brought up in that book was kind of similar, where it's like, if there's a somebody wants to, if two women are like, hey, you want to go grab lunch? It's like, oh, sure. To them, it's just hanging out.
Yeah.
Of course I want to go grab lunch. Let's just talk. And to guys, it's like, what's the goal? Like, what's the point?
Right.
Can we just have a 5-minute conversation now so I don't got to waste 45 minutes sitting down talking this out over lunch?
Exactly.
I got stuff to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting how as human beings, not just women, but even us guys, we're created for intimacy. But
is that a man thing? Like only women were created for intimacy, right?
It sure doesn't seem like it. And definitely that word carries a lot of connotations with it. But it's just a good general term for closeness and relationship.
Yeah. But when you put it in a different word, like every man wants somebody who's like a brother, like a close brother, where it's like I can read his thoughts. If if I'm going to deal with something, I know he's got my back. It's like I can call him up, and at any time, day or night, if I need something, he's right there, and vice versa. If he calls me up at 2 a.m. and he's broke down or his family needs something, I'm there. Every man desires that. We just
how many war movies do we watch? And we go, oh man, I'm so jealous of those guys.
Yeah, and you don't say, wow, those two are intimate friends.
Right, yeah. No, man, we just need some bros. It's interesting because if God really did make us to have strong relationships like that, why is it we so often find ourselves going through crap and not feeling like there's anybody reaching out?
Yeah. I mean, how many times have you seen or been the person who's going through something and you're like, I've got nobody that's like calling me up and making sure I'm doing okay. Isn't it obvious that I'm going through hell right now?
Right.
But where were we in terms of taking the risk and actually investing in a relationship prior to that.
Yeah. It's interesting because another way of looking at that, he puts it in terms of risk and reward, but I've heard it described as rights and responsibilities. So if you want to experience the reward of some sort of, I got this right. I have the right to go at a stop sign, right? Somebody else has an equal responsibility to stop. Or if you want to experience the benefits of a great investment fund, you probably have the responsibility to put money into an investment
and
fund.
not spend it on something else.
Right, exactly. And I really think that's what this chapter is all about. It's this idea that what we desperately need, it's painful to be, another odd word to throw out here is vulnerability, to make ourselves vulnerable. I mean, as men, that's the last thing we want to be. Yeah. In fact, so much of the responsibilities that we have in life require us to not be vulnerable. But the reality is that's what it takes to build those relationships. Kind of weird.
I think of my dad, who was probably the icon for that whole, 80s, I'm a rock, I'm an island,
right.
that kind of thing. And this really, it doesn't get you where you actually want to go.
Yeah.
Which is, those close friendships.
Yeah, it's interesting. Because of our friendship, I've definitely found, you were describing earlier, whether you've experienced it yourself or, I can't tell you how many guys I hear saying things like that, like, oh, I don't have anybody. And it can be kind of strange, like, well, you got to go out there and get it. And I think that's one of the biggest things I took away from the whole chapter is that it doesn't happen on accident.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen automatically. Like and I unfortunately am one of the worst offenders for expecting relationships in life to happen automatically. Like, this is how it should go. I'm doing this, this, and this. I'm not doing that, that, and that. So things should grow naturally. But whether we're talking about relationships with our wives, with our kids, with friends, with parents even, once you understand what it really takes to develop friendship, any one of those people can become a close friend.
Yeah. It definitely takes the effort. I remember how many times did we, take the time to call and just say, hey, what's going on? What are you doing? What are you into? Or, and, I wonder actually, had we not been friends when we were kids, because kids, when you think about it, they make friends so easily. It's like, 2 5-year-olds playing on the playground, they don't care about all this stuff.
Right.
And I wonder sometimes if we had to be adults to start that relationship, would we have grown this close like we are doing ministry together, or our families are friends as well. It's like, I don't know. Would I have actually been intentional? I mean, there's I like how he talks about these rules, the kind of the unwritten rules that you don't come on too strong, too fast, because then it's like, whoa, dude, that's just weird, But you do have to allow yourself to continue to be vulnerable. And at first, you're probably not talking about, the deep things. It's pretty surface. What are you into? This is my hobbies. Talking about God. Those type of things. And and eventually, you do get to the point to where you're talking about, stuff that may be even considered private, where it's like, I just need somebody to talk this through. Asking deep philosophical questions or whatever.
Yeah, well, as you describe that process, the phrase that my wife and I use is, you're probing to find out, is this person safe? Is this somebody that it's safe to be that vulnerable with? So in a casual surface conversation at a party, you might let one or two, cheap things slip, right? That it's like, let's see how they respond to this. We're gauging each other for that safety. And then, but it requires a commitment to make the choice to, okay, I'm gonna let a little bit more show. I'm gonna let a little bit more show as the relationship progresses.
And so it sounds to me, as I read through the book and listening to what you're saying, it sounds to me like a lot of the reason why men only go so far potentially and then stop is actually not because I want to be this strong island, lone wolf doing it myself. It's actually more to do with I can only get so far before I'm concerned that I'm going to get damaged.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to say, know something about me that I don't want them to know. They're going to let it out. They're, whatever. I'm going to get hurt in some way. I'm going to allow myself to be too close. They're going to move away. Or, I don't know what it is, but there is pain involved in relationships. And that risk at some point for a lot of men is just not worth it.
Right.
In their mind. But then when they're alone and they're going through whatever it is they're going through, all of a sudden that would have been really worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've actually handed advice to different people at different stages in their lives where it's like, hey, just as an example, people that are questioning God in their life and they're working on that relationship, I've encouraged them to find a community of believers to still fellowship with. Even if they're questioning a lot of the foundations, having a community of people has those kinds of rewards that we're talking about. That, hey, when you're in a spot where you're hurting, when you've fallen down, you need somebody to help you up. It pays dividends to have somebody else in your life.
Yeah. And so one of my last thoughts is that, what we do is actually centered around this concept of discipleship.
Yeah.
And discipleship being way more than just, I'm going to pop in, learn a couple things, and that's it. I mean, discipleship is very, very much like I'm getting in your business and you're getting in my business, and you're going to have to be vulnerable in order to, really do this well. So if you're in a mentee-mentor relationship on either side, there's some vulnerability that really has to happen to do that right.
Yeah, absolutely. Should we look at the questions here? So our questions on this chapter, number 1 just says, most men do not have a close friend they meet with regularly. Agree or disagree, and explain your answer. I just kind of always get a kick out of it. That's the conversation starter. Do you agree with this statement or not? Number 2, how many men do you know who have the kind of friend mentioned in the first question? Why do you think men find it difficult to establish and maintain close friendships? Number 3, explain the difference between an acquaintance and a friend. Do you think it's possible to ever again have a friend like the friends of your youth? Number 4, have you ever been stung by the betrayal of a close friend? How has the experience affected your other relationships? Number 5, do you have anyone with whom you can be vulnerable? What would it take for you to be vulnerable with a friend? Number 6, sometimes we need a friend to give us advice. Who gives you advice? Number 7, sometimes we need a friend to be a sounding board. Who acts as a sounding board in your life? And number 8, sometimes we need a friend who will just listen. Do you have a friend who will feel for you without giving you a big lecture? As always, some good questions to think about. But even just as I was reading them, I was thinking about the fact that because all of us as men, or I should say the majority of us as men, are fairly vulnerability averse. I don't know. We try to keep ourselves from getting into that situation.
I'm so tough that I don't want to be vulnerable. Huh?
Right.
What?
Talk about that. I think we've talked about this before. The biggest expression of courage is to make yourself vulnerable over and over, even though it hurts.
Yeah.
But to get there, it's really going to require being purposeful on our part.
Yeah.
It's each of us making that choice each day to either, to really just go, okay, I'm going to choose either with this person or that person, or just find somebody who's willing. And it's totally reasonable to lay out some boundaries and go, hey, in order to avoid hurting each other, maybe we shouldn't talk about certain things outside of this conversation. You can purposefully make it a safer environment in which you can be vulnerable, but just that we have to be intentional about it.
Yeah. Especially
considering that a lot of guys aren't going to naturally want to go very far with that. He even says in the book, he's put himself out there a lot, and a lot of the relationships don't go beyond a certain point.
Yeah.
And
you can't control that.
Yeah, exactly. And there's, it's not like we go and then, we're condemning the guy who backs off. It's just, hey, we know we're all in a different spot. Mm-hmm. But, you make more friends the more times you put yourself out there.
Yeah. You don't catch fish by not casting your rod in the water. All
right, guys. An interesting subject, definitely worth talking about. And we're always happy to have deeper conversations with you. Hopefully you've got somebody else in your life too that you can talk to, but
Read the book. See you next chapter.
see you next chapter.